Alright, so we're picking up to the end of the last chapter where we saw Takamikazuchi cut down the grave, and interestingly enough, we're then getting the reaction from the Gravekeeper's family here also. And I mentioned this because after Take thinks everything's done here, we're then shown the Gravekeeper give off this really ominous expression, almost like as if he was waiting for this to happen. But again, going back to his family's reaction, you can notice instantly how different they both react here, right? And I can't even suggest why that is. The only thing we really know about the Gravekeeper is that he's the 73rd to take up this position coming from a long line of generations, but besides this we don't know anything else, and this includes his family. And unfortunately this is where this scene ends, so if I had to make a prediction, I think this is where things will probably have to get worse now, right? Especially now that it was implied in this chapter by the Gravekeeper that no matter what Take or Ebisu do, they can't actually kill the Mask Maker for some reason. And it's not like Take and Ebisu have much time here to begin with, but given the way this chapter ended, I'm almost positive that it'll be a while until we see what happens to them next, right? Because just given everything that happened in this chapter, I'm sure you'll all agree there's so much more happening at the moment that needs to be clarified, especially the ending. But then we're seeing Yukine's sister now. She's waving goodbye to Hiyori, I'm assuming, as she's being driven away in a taxi, and as she's talking about Yukine, we then see Hiyori seemingly get off near the tree where Yato had actually buried him. Now, whether this is a coincidence or not, it's really hard to say, right? I mean, this whole scene just plays out very weird in my opinion, because we don't even see Hiyori's reflection in the rearview mirror, even though it's implied that this is Hiyori reflecting on this talk she had with Yukine's sister. So I'm not really sure what to think of this. Maybe this whole scene of Hiyori in a taxi is actually from the future at some point, because it's not like Hiyori even knows where Yato had went to bury Yukine, if I remember correctly. But after this, we're then seeing Yato and father get back to their fight, and we're seeing Yato look a lot more slower now, right? And I guess this makes sense considering not only is he being attacked by phantoms now, but now that Kazuma's been exposed to the god's secret by Nora, I'd imagine Yato's been having to fight with a lot more effort on his own part now. But then we're seeing Nora actually cutting through the blade itself, which I did not expect. I mean, we know Yato and Kazuma are under a lot of stress as it is, but I guess this makes sense given how much weaker Kazuma should be now regardless. So then father just kicks Yato away from him, and then we're getting to this really weird part where father starts talking to him. He says, "Yabuku, this little prank of yours has gotten a little too far. What is it you want this time? If you wanted something, just tell me." And you can notice Yato's just as confused as the rest of us. Father then tells Mizuchi to go and get water to heal Yato's blight, and you can even tell she's noticing something isn't right here. She looks more surprised than anything when she catches the bottle. And it doesn't end here. Father then even tries to comfort Yato. He says, "You poor thing, how did we all end up like this? Your father will always be on your side, but don't give into it," right? And this is where I just get completely lost. We're then seeing father actually crying here. So there's a lot of different ways to interpret what's going on, right? And please comment down below what you're all thinking is going on here with father, because even I don't think I know entirely what's going on. And it's even more interesting because if you go towards the end of the chapter, when Hiyori asks Mizuchi if she noticed if father's been acting strange, she tries to avoid talking about it. And this just makes it even more confusing because we know Mizuchi's already decided that she wants to be on father's side, right? And as far as we know, it's not like father suddenly changed his motives for fighting against the heavens either, so there really shouldn't be anything weird going on from Nora's perspective. But I want to make it very clear that I'm trying to look at this through her perspective, right? Because she seems like she's already forgiven father for abandoning her, so I think whatever she's noticed between him and Yato here is something we're just as unaware of as her. And if that's the case, like I believe it is, then it begs the question here, what actually changed about father? And I don't think it's as easy to assume, because if you go back to the second half of chapter 94, this is when father was first under the impression that Yato didn't actually want to kill him, that this was all just an act to make it look like that so Amaterasu wouldn't kill father herself. And of course he was very quick to realize Yato was serious here, so we've already moved past father deluding himself into believing Yato truly doesn't want to kill him. And if you go to chapter 95, you'll notice how resolved he is to actually kill Yato. He even says it out loud to him that that's what he's going to do, so it's hard to say for sure if father's deluding himself here for the second time. Or maybe not. Maybe you're under the impression that father's still deluding himself into believing Yato is still this precious son to him. I honestly wouldn't blame blame you if that's what you took away from this chapter. Because just like in chapter 94, you could almost call it part of his personality, where father sees only what he wants to see, even if it means deluding himself for that purpose. So if this is just the second time where father's now lying to himself into believing Yato is still like a son to him, then I think you would have a point. But if that were true, then I don't see why Mizuchi would react the way she does, because if father was legitimately trying to act fatherly to Yato, then it's just normal behavior on his part through Mizuchi's perspective, right? But I think she realizes something is actually wrong here, so I don't think father's fully deluding himself. I think it's because we saw him crying when he's talking to Yato that it's only half of the truth. I mean, considering father and Yato's history, and the fact that this is the first time Yato's decided to rebel so far to this extent, I'm sure in some twisted sense of the word, this is actually father realizing his own sort of love for Yato. And I guess that makes sense if you remember how father literally raised him and Mizuchi, but again, I think this is only half of what's truly going on here, right? Especially after what Amaterasu told him in chapter 98 about father not being the necessary one when she was actually talking about Yato. I was always sure this would eventually come back into the story again about what exactly makes Yato this necessary one according to Amaterasu, but I think this is where it's starting, because we know how methodical and calculated father can be, right? So I don't actually doubt he just suddenly forgot about what Amaterasu had told him. I would expect him to keep this in the back of his mind, so if he somehow came to the conclusion that she was talking about Yato, then I think it makes sense why he's suddenly trying to get on Yato's good side, because maybe father realizes he actually needs Yato for whatever he has planned for the heavens next. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that father is such a complex villain, right? I mean, he's come so far because of how cunning he is, so even though I think his tears were genuine when he's talking to Yato, I wouldn't say it's because his intentions are completely in Yato's best interest either, regardless of what Yato's goals are. And this could help explain why Mizuchi thinks something's wrong with him. Maybe she's realizing father's just trying to sweet talk Yato here so he could use him again. And if that's the case, then I could see why it would actually make it hard for Mizuchi to admit this to Hiyori, because in a roundabout way, it's like she's admitting to herself that that's what she came back to, even though she doesn't want to realize it herself. So overall, I can't wait to see where the next chapter goes with this, because the scene ends with Yato thinking to himself, saying he's scared, so I'm not sure how this fight is supposed to continue, let alone if it's really over. But then coming to the end of the chapter, we're getting to the big moment when Hiyori runs into Mizuchi as she's filling up the water bottle to go back and heal Yato. And I don't know why, it feels like we haven't seen Hiyori in years at this point, but as she's talking to Mizuchi about Yato, Yukine, and then father, she tries to convince her to not go back. When we're getting to the big moment, we actually see her cord seemingly break here. Now, if you look close enough, it doesn't look entirely split, right? It's more like there's just a massive tear at the end, but still, you can tell by Mizuchi's face that this situation's only gotten so much worse now. And not just for Hiyori, but I'd imagine this means father's completely defenseless at this point. But again, I'm not sure if Hiyori is dead just yet, right? I mean, it seems like that's what we're meant to believe, but until I see her tail ripped in half completely, then I think there's still hope here. And it's so interesting because like how we just saw Kazuma start to break, we're now seeing it happen with Hiyori, so I can't even imagine Yato and Bishamon's reaction to when they finally find out about Hiyori and Kazuma. Like, there's no way father and Mizuchi somehow survive by the end of this. And then there's everything going on with Yukine, so everything is just slowly but surely getting worse and worse. Overall, this was a solid chapter. I'm sure in the next 1 or 2 months, we're also gonna see something just as big, so I guess we all just gotta hope for the best here that no one actually dies. But that's gonna be the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know this video was a little bit late. I apologize. I had family over for the weekend, so I couldn't really make the time I needed to get this out earlier, so I'm sorry for the delay. But before I end the video, I want to give a very special thanks to the channel's patrons, Iron, Justin, Nix, EXP, Paranormal Beluga, and Jedi Knight 104. Thank you so much for the support, guys. And for anyone wondering, I just recently opened up a Patreon where if you're interested, you can sign up too and get into the monthly Q&A I'll be doing now here on the channel. I'll be posting the next one up sometime at the start of September, so from now until the end of August, feel free to consider joining. You'd also be helping me out a lot here in a massive way and get a special shout out like this in every single video. The link will be in the description below, or you could just search it yourself at patreon.com/Izanami. But other than that, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I would would greatly appreciate it, and feel free to comment down below what your thoughts are on the chapter, anything you agreed or disagreed with, and of course, if you're interested in more Noragami, then make sure you subscribe. I'll be doing more here on the channel like always, and yeah, have a great day.